Question number 1. A student is asked to find the volume of a small irregularly shaped piece of rock. He has the following apparatus available: balanced measuring cylinder containing water and rule. Which apparatus must be the student use to find the volume of the small piece of rock? Okay, you know that rule is for regularly shaped piece. Balance is for measuring mass. Balance is for measuring mass. That's why for this question we need only measuring cylinder only. So D is right. The speed time graph represents the motion of a car traveling along a straight level road. Which statement describes the motion of the car? Okay, you know that a slope of a speed time graph is acceleration. So a slope is decreasing, then reach to a constant speed. That's why you should choose A. It accelerates and reaches a constant speed. Question number 3. An athlete runs 300 meters up a hill at a steady speed of 3 meters per second. She then immediately runs the same distance down the hill at a steady speed of 6 meters per second. What is her average speed for the 600 meters run? We know that average speed is total distance over total time. Total distance is 300 plus 300. Total time, you know that V is equal to D over T. That's why T equal to D over V. So instead of time, you should write T1 plus T2. So T1 is 300 divided by 3, and T2 will be 300 divided by 6. The final answer will be 4 meters per second. Question number 4. Which statement is correct? We know that weight is a gravitational force, so A and B are wrong. Unit of mass is kg. Unit of weight is Newton, because weight is a force. That's why C is right. Question number 5. We know that resistive force is always opposing motion. That's why if the bird is moving towards the B, D will be resistive force direction. That's why D is right. Question number 6. A measuring cylinder contains 300 centimeter cube of liquid. Some more of the liquid is added until the liquid level reaches the 50 centimeter cube mark. The reading on the balance increased by 30 grams. What is the density of the liquid? We know that density is mass over volume. Mass is 30 and volume of object will be 50 minus 30, which is 20. That's why the density will be 1.5. Question number 7. We know that when resultant force is 0, resultant force means MA. So MA will be 0. That's why A is 0. When A is 0, a slope of a speed time will be 0. So in this question, it is asked that in which label part of the journey is the resultant force on the car is 0. When resultant force is 0, MA is 0 means A is 0. When A is 0, a slope of a speed time will be 0. That's why C will be right, because in C a slope is 0. Question number 8. It is said the diagram shows a uniform meter rule balance at the midpoint. What is the weight W placed at the 20 centimeter mark? We know that when meter rule is balanced, so sum of the clockwise moment will be equal to sum of the anti-clockwise moment. So there is one clockwise moment, which is 6 times 20. 20 is distance to the pivot, so 70 minus 50 is 20. So this is because 70 minus 20. And for anti-clockwise moment, we have one force, which is W, times 50 minus 20. So 50 minus 20, which is 30. That's why W will be 4. If you calculate, W will be 4. Question number 9. A wooden plank rests in equilibrium. So you know that when it is in equilibrium, there are two conditions for equilibrium. Number 1, no resultant force. And number 2, no resultant moment. We use number 1 to solve this question. That's why upward forces will be P plus R and downward force will be Q. So P plus R is equal to P. Sorry, P plus R equal to Q. So B is right. Question number 10. A ball is at rest at the top of a hill. It rolls down the hill. At the bottom of the hill, the ball hits a wall and stops. Which energy changes occur? We know that when object is at position H relative to the surface of the earth, you know that surface of the earth potential energy is 0. When it is at the height H, so it has potential energy. So it has gravitational potential energy. That's why A and B can be right. So after that, when it rolls down the hill, so it gets kinetic energy. So potential energy changed to kinetic energy. That's why B will be right, because at the end it stops, so it means all energy change to internal energy. That's why B is right. Question 11. A man pulls a trunk a distance of 20 meters as shown in the 3 diagrams. Which statement concerning the work done against gravity is correct? We know that work done depends on vertical distance, which is the most for number 1. That's why number 1 is the right. So most work is done in number 1 because vertical distance is more for number 1. As you can see, this is vertical distance, and for this number 2 is this much, for number 3 also this much. So for number 1, H will be more. That's why most work is done in number 1. Which source of energy is used in a nuclear power station to generate electrical energy? We know that in nuclear power station, heavy nuclei are splitting and gives energy. That's why B is right. About radioactive isotope decaying, it is for geothermal energy. So it is for geothermal source of energy inside the earth. Question 13. 2 beakers are filled to the same depth, one with water and one with oil. The density of water is 1000 kg per meter cube and the density of oil is 920 kg per meter cube. In which position is the pressure the greatest? We know that pressure is rho GH. So rho, which is density of water, more than density of oil. That's why pressure for water is more than pressure of oil. So now we should choose between A and B because pressure for water is more. Then pressure in depth H is equal to atmospheric pressure plus rho GH. So atmospheric pressure plus rho GH. So I can correct this one. This is P for atmospheric pressure, so I can choose another sign for that. So I can write P for atmospheric plus rho GH because this is for oil and this one for water. So pressure in depth H is equal to atmospheric pressure plus rho GH because of depth of liquid, and that's why pressure at B is more than A. So B is right. Question 14. A water manometer is connected to a gas supply. There is a gas leak and the pressure of the gas supply falls. What happens to the water level at P and what happens to the water level at Q? We know that when gas leak, first of all, level of Q is higher than level of P. Why in this figure? Because pressure of gas supply at P is more than atmospheric pressure at Q. So this is one point. And the second point is that when the gas leak, so gas supply pressure decrease, that's why P increase and Q decrease. P goes up and Q level goes down. That's why C is right. Question 15. A cylinder with a tap contains a fixed mass of gas X. The gas is contained by a piston which can move freely towards or away from the tap. When the tap is open, the piston moves slightly to the right towards the tap. What can be deduced about the pressure of gas X? Okay. When tap is closed, piston is in this condition, in this position. When tap is open, piston moves to the right. So what does it mean? It means pressure inside is more than pressure outside. That's why we should choose between C and D. So before opening tap, pressure is more than atmospheric pressure inside the cylinder. That's why between C and D we should choose. And then after opening tap, outside and inside have same pressure. That's why D is right. Question 16. Which quantity doesn't change when there is an increase in temperature? We know that when temperature increases, density, diameter, length, they increase. Only mass of metal coin doesn't increase because mass doesn't depend on temperature. Question 17. A thermometer has a low thermal capacity. Why is this an advantage? First of all, what is thermal capacity? Thermal capacity is the amount of energy which is required to raise temperature of an object by 1 degree Celsius. This is definition of thermal capacity. Now, between A to D, we should choose one of them. Number one, the thermometer doesn't absorb much thermal energy to raise its own temperature. The thermometer doesn't conduct much thermal energy to the surroundings. The thermometer doesn't melt when it gets hot, so this is completely wrong. The thermometer doesn't radiate much thermal energy to the surroundings. This is also wrong. Between A and B, because most students will answer A or B, we can choose A. The thermometer doesn't absorb much energy to raise its own temperature because thermal capacity of thermometer is low. That's why it gets less energy for increasing its temperature. That's why A is right. In this question, what is the melting point of the substance? Okay, we should find some area the temperature doesn't change. So in these parts, temperature doesn't change. What does it mean? It means in this area, latent heat of fusion gives to the substance, but temperature doesn't change, and melting happens. That's why 55 will be melting point of this substance. Question 19. A teacher demonstrates an experiment to a class. A boiling tube is filled with water and some ice cubes are trapped at the bottom of the tube. The teacher then hits the boiling tube in the position shown until the water at the top boils. The ice doesn't melt. What does this demonstrate? So, top part of the liquid or water is boiling, but at the bottom of the tube you can see ice. So it means water is a poor conductor of thermal energy. That's why C is right. Question 20. A hot metal plate is placed near to a cold metal plate. Infrared radiation transfers thermal energy between the two plates. Which choice of color causes the temperature of the cold plate to increase most slowly? First of all, two important points. Dull black surfaces are better absorbers of radiation than white shiny surfaces. And dull black surface is a better emitter of radiation than the shiny one. So the question asks for most slowly. That's why hot plate should be shiny white, and cold plate also should be shiny white. Because when heat from hot plate comes to the cold plate, when cold plate is shiny white, so most of the radiation will be reflected. That's why increasing temperature for cold plates happens most slowly. And hot plate also should be shiny white, which can reflect radiation more. Okay, so that's why D is right. 21. Question 21. It is said that in which row shows an example of a transverse wave and an example of longitudinal wave. We know that radio wave is transverse and sound is longitudinal. Light also is transverse. That's why B is right. An object is placed before a plane mirror as shown. A student views the image of the object in the mirror from point P. Where does she see the image? We know that there are properties of the image for plane mirror. Number one, the same size as the object, virtual, laterally inverted, and the same distance as the object has to the mirror. Based on this, you can see that distance of object from the mirror and distance of image. That's why D will be right. Next question. Light passes through a prism as shown. The light changes direction and produces a spectrum of colors. Which term is used to describe the production of the spectrum of colors? The answer for this question is dispersion. Dispersion happens because white light is a mixture of many colors. The prism separates the colors because the refractive index of glass is different for each color. This is explanation of dispersion. Question 24. Which type of waves are produced by a television remote controller? We know that for this we need infrared waves. So infrared produce for television remote controller. 25. We know that in music, more amplitude means more loudness. So less amplitude, less loudness, or more quieter. More frequency means more pitch. So less frequency means less pitch. That's why for question 25, it is said both the amplitude and the frequency of a sound wave decrease. What happens to the sound heard? So when amplitude and frequency decrease, it means loudness will be decreased and pitch also will be decreased. That's why lower pitch and less loudness, which is quieter, will be answer for this question. That's why 25, D is right. Question 26, an electromagnet is used to remove a splinter from an eye. What material is the splinter made from? So must be iron, because it must be ferromagnetic material. Question 27, we know that magnetic field line will come out from North Pole and goes to the S Pole, and they go to the S Pole. That's why C is right for question 27. 28. A metal conductor is connected to a battery. Which statement describes the current in the metal conductor? First of all, proton doesn't move, so C and D will be wrong. So C and D are wrong. Between A and B you should choose. Okay. It is a flow of electrons from the negative to the positive terminal, because you know that electron start moving from the negative terminal. That's why A is right. Question 29. A student sets up the circuit shown to measure three quantities: the current, electromotive force of the cell, and potential difference across a lamp. How many ammeters and how many voltmeters are needed? We know that for current we need ammeter, for electromotive force and potential difference we need voltmeter. That's why we need 2 voltmeters and 1 ammeter. Question 30. What is resistance? We know that resistance is V over I. So V is 12, I is 3. So the answer will be 4 ohms. That's why B will be right. Question 31. The diagram shows a circuit containing a cell, ammeter, lamp, and a variable resistor. The resistance of the variable resistor is increased. What happens to the ammeter reading and what happens to the brightness of the lamp? Okay. When resistance of variable resistor is increased, so resistance here, if resistance in this part, if resistance increase, because variable resistor is connected to the lamp in series, that's why resistance of the whole circuit will increase. When resistance, total resistance increase, it means current decreases. So when current decrease, brightness decrease. So brightness decreases. That's why A is right. Ammeter reading decreased, lamp brightness decrease. Question 32. Diagram 1 shows 2 identical lamps connected in series with a cell. Diagram 2 shows the same 2 lamps connected in parallel with an identical cell. Which statement is correct? Okay. Total resistance in diagram 1 is more than in diagram 2, because in diagram 1 they are in series, but in diagram 2 they are in parallel. And we know that in series, for 2 we should add resistance. But for parallel, you should use 1 over R equal 1 over R1 plus 1 over R2. That's why total resistance in diagram 1 is more. So less current will be in diagram 1, which means that cell 1 can supply current for longer time than cell in diagram 2. Because of that, A will be right. Okay. In this question, which ammeter shows the largest reading? Okay. We know that in this part, this is positive end and current comes to the circuit. So ammeter D has the largest current because ammeter D, ID equal to IA plus IB plus IC. For ammeter A, current will be IA. For ammeter B, current will be IB plus IC. Because in this part, current divided in two parts. And in ammeter C, current will be IC. That's why in ammeter D, current will be the largest. That's why D will be right. So D answer for this question. 34. The diagram shows the arrangement of the coil, armature and contact of the relay. Which diagram shows this arrangement when there is no current in the coil? Okay, when there is no current in the coil, so armature doesn't have any contact with contacts. That's why B and C completely, they are wrong. Between A and D, we should choose one of them. And we know that when current comes to the coil, armature, one part of the armature comes down and touch the coil. That's why armature another part of the armature goes up and contacts with contacts. That's why D will be wrong as well, so A will be right. Question 35. The diagram represents the magnetic field. What causes this field? So this magnetic field is for a straight wire carrying a current. That's why C is right. Question 36. The diagram shows a simple DC electric motor which is rotating. Which change makes the motor rotate more quickly? Okay, if you remove the magnet, so there is no movement for coil. If you're reversing the battery, so direction of current will change. If you reverse the polarity of the magnet, so if you change north pole and south pole, then rotation direction will change. That's why if you want motor rotate more quickly, you should choose number 1, A, which is increasing the number of turns on the coil, which causes more EMF. That's why motor rotates more quickly. So A will be right. Question 37. The notation for an isotope of sodium is Na2311. Arash gives the composition of the neutral atom of this isotope of sodium. We know that 11 is atomic number, so atomic number, which number of proton or electron, when it is neutral. That's why number of proton or electron will be 11, and 23 minus 11, it is 12, which is number of neutron. That's why A is right. Question 38. Which diagram represents a nucleus or nucleus of H31? So number of neutron will be 3 minus 1, so it is 2. That's why B, C, D are wrong and A will be right. 39. When measuring the emissions from a radioactive rock brought into the laboratory, a teacher mentions that background radiation must be taken into account. What is this background radiation? First of all, background radiation caused partly by radioactive materials in rocks, the air, and our bodies, and partly by cosmic rays from outer space. These are 4 causes of background radiation. That's why when there is no radioactive rock in the laboratory, then you can consider background radiation. So D is right. Ionizing radiation in the laboratory when the radioactive rock is not present. Okay, last question. The graph shows the percentage of a radioactive isotope that remains as time passes. This graph is percentage of isotope remaining and time, which is in minutes. A student measures the initial rate of emission of this isotope as 40,000 emissions per second. How long does it take for the rate of emission to fall to 5,000 emissions per second? Okay, first of all, based on figure, this graph, 100% changed to 50%, so it took 5 minutes. So what does it mean? So half-life will be 5 minutes. Then 40,000, if changed to 20,000 emission per second, it takes T, which is half-life. So 20,000 changed to 10,000, remaining is 10,000. So again, 1 half-life. 10,000 changed to 5,000, this is remaining. Isotope, percentage of isotope, so it takes also 1 half-life. So 1, 2, 3 T, so means 3 half-life. So half-life is 5 minutes, so 3 times 5, which is 15 minutes. So this is last question of this past paper. Thank you very much. Goodbye.